don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't.
Chapter 128. High Altitude and Space Physiology. High Altitude. High altitude is the region of Earth located at an altitude of above 8,000 feet from mean sea level. People can ascend up to this level, without any adverse effect. Different altitudes are given in Table 128.1. Characteristic feature of high altitude is the low barometric pressure. However, amount of oxygen available in the atmosphere is same as that of sea level. Due to low barometric pressure, partial pressure of gases, particularly oxygen, proportionally decreases. It leads to hypoxia. Carbon dioxide in high altitude is very much negligible and it does not create any problem. Barometric pressure and partial pressure of oxygen at different altitudes. Barometric pressure decreases at different altitudes. Accordingly, partial pressure of oxygen also decreases and produces various effects on the body. Barometric pressure and partial pressure of oxygen at different altitudes and their common effects on the body are given in Table 128.2. Changes in the body at high altitude. When a person is exposed to high altitude, particularly by rapid ascent, the various systems in the body cannot cope with lowered oxygen tension and effects of hypoxia start. Besides hypoxia, some other factors are also responsible for the changes in functions of the body at high altitude. Factors affecting physiological functions at high altitude. Hypoxia. Expansion of gases. Fall in atmospheric temperature. Light rays. Effects of hypoxia. Refer Chapter 127 for effects of hypoxia. Effects of expansion of gases on the body. Volume of gases increases when the barometric pressure is reduced. So at high altitude, due to the decreased barometric pressure, volume of all gases increases in atmospheric air, as well as in the body. At the sea level with atmospheric pressure of 760 mm Hg, if the volume of gas is 1 liter, at the height of 18,000 feet, where atmospheric pressure is 379 mm Hg, it becomes 2 liter. And it becomes 3 liter, at the height of 30,000 feet, where atmospheric pressure is 226 mm Hg. Expansion of gases in GI tract causes painful distension of stomach and intestine. It is minimized by supporting the abdomen with a belt or by evacuation of the gases. Expansion of gases also destroys the alveoli. During very rapid ascent from sea level to over 30,000 feet height, the gases evolve as bubbles, particularly nitrogen, resulting in decompression sickness. Refer Chapter 129 for details of decompression sickness. Effects of reduced atmospheric temperature. Environmental temperature falls gradually at high altitudes. The temperature decreases to about 0 degrees Celsius at the height of 10,000 feet. It becomes 22 degrees C at the height of 20,000 feet. At the altitude of 40,000 feet, the temperature falls to 44 degrees C. Injury due to cold or frostbite occurs if the body is not adequately protected by warm clothing. Effects of light rays. Skin becomes susceptible for injury due to many harmful rays like ultraviolet rays of sunlight. Moreover, the sun rays reflected by the snow might injure the retina of the eye, if it is not protected with suitable tinted glasses. Severity of all these effects depends upon the speed at which one ascends in high altitude. The effects are comparatively milder or moderate in slow ascent and are severe in rapid ascent. Mountain sickness. Definition. Mountain sickness is the condition characterized by adverse effects of hypoxia at high altitude. It is commonly developed in persons going to high altitude for the first time. It occurs within a day in these persons, before they get acclimatized to the altitude. Symptoms. In mountain sickness, the symptoms occur mostly in digestive system, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, and nervous system. Symptoms of mountain sickness are Digestive system. Loss of appetite, nausea, and vomiting occur because of expansion of gases in GI tract. Cardiovascular system. Heart rate and force of contraction of heart increases. Respiratory system. Pulmonary blood pressure increases due to increased blood flow. Blood flow increases because of vasodilatation induced by hypoxia. Increased pulmonary blood pressure results in pulmonary edema, which causes breathlessness. Nervous system. Symptoms occurring in nervous system are headache, depression, disorientation, irritability, lack of sleep, weakness, and fatigue. These symptoms are developed because of cerebral edema. Sudden exposure to hypoxia in high altitude causes vasodilatation in brain. Autoregulation mechanism of cerebral blood flow fails to cope with hypoxia. It leads to an increased capillary pressure and leakage of fluid from capillaries into the brain tissues. Treatment. Symptoms of mountain sickness disappear by breathing oxygen. Acclimatization. Definition. Acclimatization refers to the adaptations or the adjustments by the body in high altitude. While staying at high altitudes for several days to several weeks, a person slowly gets adapted or adjusted to the low oxygen tension, so that hypoxic effects are reduced. It enables the person to ascend further. Changes during acclimatization. Various changes that take place during acclimatization help the body to cope with adverse effects of hypoxia at high altitude. Following changes occur in the body during acclimatization: changes in blood. During acclimatization, RBC count increases and packed cell volume rises from normal value of 45% to about 59%. Hemoglobin content in the blood rises from 15% to 20%. So, the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is increased. Thus, more oxygen can be carried to tissues, in spite of hypoxia. Increase in packed cell volume and hemoglobin content is due to erythropoietin actions. Increase in RBC count, packed cell volume and hemoglobin content is due to erythropoietin, that is released from juxtaglomerular apparatus of kidney. Changes in cardiovascular system. Overall activity of cardiovascular system is increased in high altitude. There is an increase in rate and force of contraction of the heart and cardiac output. Vascularity in the body is increased due to vasodilatation induced by hypoxia. So, blood flow to vital organs such as heart, brain, muscles, etc. increases. Changes in respiratory system. Pulmonary ventilation. Pulmonary ventilation increases up to 65%. This is the immediate compensation for hypoxia in high altitude, and this alone helps the person to ascend several thousand feet. Increase in pulmonary ventilation is due to the stimulation of chemoreceptors, Chapter 126. Pulmonary hypertension. Increased cardiac output increases the pulmonary blood flow that leads to pulmonary hypertension. It is very common even in persons acclimatized to high altitude. In some of these persons, pulmonary hypertension is associated with right ventricular hypertrophy. Diffusing capacity of gases. Due to increased pulmonary blood flow and increased ventilation, diffusing capacity of gases increases in alveoli. It enables more diffusion of oxygen in blood. Changes in tissues. Both in human beings and animals residing at high altitudes permanently, the cellular oxidative enzymes involved in metabolic reactions are more than the inhabitants at sea level. Even when a sea level inhabitant stays at high altitude for certain period, the amount of oxidative enzymes is not increased. So, the elevation in the amount of oxidative enzymes occurs only in fully acclimatized persons. An increase in the number of mitochondria is observed in these persons. Aviation physiology. Aviation physiology is the study of physiological responses of the body in aviation environment. Flying exerts great effects on the body through accelerative forces and gravitational forces, which are developed during the flight maneuvering. Pilots and other crew members of aircraft are trained to overcome the effects of these forces. Accelerative force. Acceleration means change in velocity. Flying straight in horizontal plane with constant velocity has minimum effects on the body. However, changes in velocity produce severe physiological effects. Accelerative forces are developed in the flight during linear, radial, or centripetal and angular acceleration. Gravitational force. Gravitational force, G-force, is the major factor that develops accelerative force. G-force and the direction in which body receives the force are responsible for physiological changes in the body during acceleration. Force or pull of gravity upon the body is expressed in G-unit. On the Earth, this pull is responsible for body weight. Force of gravity while sitting, standing or lying position is considered to be equal to body weight, and it is referred as 1 g. G-unit increases in acceleration. If we say that G-unit increases to 5 g during acceleration, it means that the force of gravity on body at that moment is equal to 5 times the body weight. While traveling in an airplane, elevator, or a car, if there is a sudden change in speed or direction, passengers are thrown or centrifuged in the opposite direction. It is because of change in the G-unit. G-unit may increase or decrease. Increase in G-unit is called positive G and decrease in G-unit is called negative G. Positive G occurs while increasing the speed, acceleration. Negative G occurs while decreasing the speed, slowing down, deceleration. G-unit is altered during the change in direction also. While flying, both positive G and negative G cause physiological changes in the body. Effects of gravitational forces on the body. Effects of positive G. Major effects of positive G during acceleration are on the blood circulation. When G-unit increases to about 4 to 5 g, blood is pushed toward the lower parts of the body including abdomen. So the cardiac output decreases, resulting in reduced blood supply to the brain and eyes. Decreased blood flow in turn, decreases oxygen supply, hypoxia, to the head and leads to following disturbances: grayout. Grayout is the graying of vision that occurs when blood flow to eyes starts diminishing. It occurs because the retina is more sensitive to hypoxia than brain. Though physical impairment does not occur, grayout is considered as a warning for decreased blood flow to head. Blackout. Blackout is the complete loss of vision that occurs when retinal function is affected by hypoxia. Consciousness and muscular activities are still retained, but it indicates the risk of loss of consciousness. Loss of consciousness. When force increases beyond 5 g, hypoxia reaches the critical level and causes loss of consciousness. It may be associated with convulsions. Unconscious state may last for about 15 seconds. After recovery from unconsciousness, the person needs another 10 to 15 minutes for orientation. If the affected person happens to be a lone pilot, then he will lose control over his aircraft. Fracture of bones. When force increases to about 20 g, bones, particularly the spine, become susceptible for fracture even during sitting posture. Effects of negative G. Negative G develops while flying downwards, inverted flying. It causes the following disturbances: hyperemia. When the force decreases to 4 to 6 g, hyperemia, abnormal increase in blood flow, occurs in head because the blood is pushed towards head. Sometimes the blood accumulates in head, resulting in brain edema. There is congestion, flushing of face and mild headache. Negative G at this level is tolerable and the effects are only momentary. Brain also can withstand hyperemia in such conditions. Redout and headache. Redout is the blurring of vision and sudden reddening of visual field, caused by engorgement of blood vessels in head. When the negative G reaches to about 15 g to 20 g, there is dilatation and congestion of blood vessels in head and eyes, resulting in redout and headache. Blood vessels in brain may not be affected much because of CSF. When blood accumulates in brain, there is simultaneous pooling of CSF in cranium. The high pressure exerted by CSF acts as a cushion, buffer, and protects the blood vessels of brain. Loss of consciousness. High negative G affects the body by other means. It increases the pressure in the blood vessels of chest and neck. It causes bradycardia or irregular heartbeat, which adds to stagnation of blood in head. All these factors ultimately lead to unconsciousness. Prevention of effects of G-forces on the body. Body can be protected from the effects of G-forces, particularly positive G, by the following methods: by using abdominal belts. Pooling of blood in the abdominal blood vessels is prevented by using abdominal belt and leaning forward while sitting in the aircraft. This procedure postpones grayout or blackout. By using anti-G suit. Anti-G suit exerts a positive pressure on lower limbs and abdomen and prevents the pooling of blood in lower part of the body. Space physiology. Space physiology is the study of physiological responses of the body in space and spacecrafts. Major differences between the environments of Earth and space are atmosphere, radiation, and gravity. These three factors challenge the human survival in space. Atmospheric factors include atmospheric pressure, temperature, humidity, and gas composition. Spacecraft or space lab is provided with stable and sophisticated environmental control system, which maintains all the atmospheric factors close to Earth's environment. Astronauts also wear launch and entry suit, LE. LE is a pressurized suit that protects the body from space environment. Another factor which affects the body in the space is weightlessness. Weightlessness is because of absence of gravity, microgravity. Effects of travel by spacecraft. While traveling by spacecraft, the astronauts experience some intense symptoms only during blast-off, due to acceleration, and during landing because of deceleration. Otherwise, the accelerative forces are least while traveling in a spacecraft, since the spacecraft cannot make rapid changes in speed or direction like an aircraft. Most of the physiological changes occur due to weightlessness in space travel. These changes are responsible for the adaptation of astronauts' body to space environment. Further, problems develop only when they return to Earth. They require a long time to readapt to Earth environment. Effects of weightlessness in spacecraft are: effects on cardiovascular systems and kidneys. Cardiovascular changes are due to the fluid shift. Due to absence of gravity, blood moves from lower part to upper part of the body, upper trunk and head. It causes enlargement of heart to cope up with increased blood flow. In addition, there is an accumulation of other body fluids in upper part. Now, the compensatory mechanism in the body interprets the increase in blood and other fluids as a serious threat and starts correcting it by excreting large amount of fluid through kidneys. It causes decrease in blood volume and the heart need not pump the blood against gravity in space. So, initially enlarged heart starts shrinking slowly and becomes small. Thus during the initial fluid shift, astronauts experience dizziness or feeling of fainting. Along with water, kidneys excrete electrolytes also. Because of this, osmolarity of body fluids is not altered. So the thirst center is not stimulated and the astronauts do not feel thirsty during space travel. Effects on blood. Plasma volume decreases due to excretion of fluid through urine. RBC count also decreases and it is called space anemia. Effects on musculoskeletal system. Because of microgravity in space, the muscles need not support the body against gravity. Astronauts move by floating instead of using their legs. This leads to decrease in muscle mass and muscle strength. Endurance of the muscles also decreases. Bones become weak. Osteoclastic activity increases during space travel. Calcium removed from bone is excreted through urine. Effects on immune system. Space travel causes suppression of immune system in the body. Space motion sickness. After obtaining weightlessness, some astronauts develop space motion sickness. It is characterized by nausea, vomiting, headache and malaise, generalized feeling of discomfort or lack of well-being or illness that is associated with sensation of exhaustion. It persists for 2 or 3 days and then disappears. It is thought that the motion sickness occurs due to abnormal stimulation of vestibular apparatus and fluid shift.